The sun has set. The noise of the modern world is fading behind you. Take a breath. Let the artificial lights of your room dim in your mind. Tonight, we are not going to a place of comfort. We are traveling back, thousands of years back, to a landscape painted in marble and shadow. We often think of ancient Greece as a place of shining white temples, of wise philosophers walking in gardens, and of gods feasting on ambrosia atop Mount Olympus. But that is only the day side of the story. When the sun dipped below the Aegean Sea, when the olive groves turned black in the twilight, the Greeks knew a different truth. They knew that the world was not safe. They knew that beneath the earth, inside the caves, and beneath the swirling waves, things were waiting. Tonight, we will not sing of heroes in golden armor. We will speak of what made them tremble. We will speak of the teeth in the dark, the curses that span generations, and the monsters that were not just beasts, but warnings given flesh. So, pull the covers up, close your eyes. Let us walk together into the bestiary of the ancient world. If we are to talk about monsters, we must begin with the king of them all, the father of nightmares. Imagine a volcano. Now imagine that volcano has eyes and hate and a voice. That is Typhon. In the genealogy of the gods, Typhon was the ultimate rebellion. He was born from the earth herself, Gaia. Gaia was angry. She had watched Zeus and the Olympians conquer the world, imprisoning her older children, the Titans. So in her fury, she mingled with the dark pit of Tartarus and birthed a weapon. Typhon was not a man, nor fully a god. He was a cataclysm. The poets say he was so tall that his head brushed the stars. When he spread his arms, one hand touched the east, the other the west. But it was his lower half that defied sanity. He did not have legs. Instead, he moved on a writhing, hissing mass of giant vipers. 100 snakeheads coiled beneath him, creating a sound like 1,000 dry leaves scraping on stone. And his voice. It was said that Typhon did not speak one language. From his throat came the sound of a bull bellowing, a lion roaring, and the crack of thunder. He was the hurricane. He was the earthquake. When he rose to destroy Olympus, fear struck the gods. The golden deities of Greece, immortal and powerful, looked at Typhon and felt the icy grip of terror. Most of them fled. They ran to Egypt, shape-shifting into animals to hide. Only Zeus stood firm, but even the king of gods was nearly broken. Their battle was not a fight. It was the breaking of the world. Lightning against lava. Order against chaos. Zeus eventually trapped Typhon beneath Mount Etna in Sicily. But listen closely. Typhon is not dead. He cannot die. He is merely buried. When the ground shakes, when the volcano smokes, the ancients knew the truth. The monster is just rolling over in his sleep. Chaos is never gone. It is only waiting. While Typhon was the rage of the storm, his partner was the horror of the silence. Deep in a cave, far from the reach of the sun, lived Echidna. She was the mother of monsters. Echidna was a creature of duality. From the waist up, she was a nymph, beautiful, dark-eyed, alluring. But from the waist down, she was a speckled serpent, massive and cold, coiling into the endless dark of her lair. She did not seek to destroy the world like Typhon. She simply sought to exist and to breed. She represents the dangers of the wild places, the deep forests, the hidden pits. She is the reason we fear the dark. Together with Typhon, she birthed a family tree of horrors. Every beast that a hero fought, every creature that haunted a village, likely came from her womb. The Greeks believed that nature was beautiful, yes, but also fertile with terror. Echidna was that fertility. She is immortal. She does not age. She sits in her cave, perhaps even now, in the spaces between myths, watching, waiting, and mothering the things that go bump in the night. Let us leave the cave and travel to the edge of the world, to the banks of the river Styx. Here, the mist is gray and the water is black. This is the entrance to the underworld. And standing at the gate is the eldest son of Echidna, the hound of Hades, Cerberus. We often think of monsters as evil, creatures that hunt and kill for sport. But Cerberus is different. Cerberus is a professional. Imagine a dog, massive in size, with 3 heads snarling in unison. A mane of snakes writhes around his neck, and his tail is a serpent. He is terrifying, yes, but he is not a villain. He is a guardian. His job is simple. He lets the dead in, but he never, ever lets them out. He is the finality of death, given form. He ensures the balance of the universe. The most fascinating stories about Cerberus are not about fighting him, but about bypassing him. You cannot fight death. You must negotiate with it. The musician Orpheus played a song so sad and sweet that the great beast lay down and wept, lulled to sleep by melody. The beauty Psyche, on a quest for love, distracted him with honey cakes. Even the mighty Heracles, who was tasked with capturing him, did not kill the beast. He wrestled him, subdued him, and then returned him to his post. Cerberus teaches us a quiet lesson. The scary things in the dark are often just doing their job. They are the boundaries we must respect. He waits there still, 3 heads alert, watching the gray mist of the river Styx. We leave the gates of the underworld now. We leave Cerberus at his post, watching the gray mist of the river Styx. We ascend back to the mortal world, but not to the safety of the city. We are heading to the wild places. To the Greeks, the landscape itself was alive with danger. Every swamp could hide a hunger. Every mountain peak could hide a fire. The monsters we meet next are not guardians. They are predators. They are the children of Echidna, who did not stay in the dark, but came out to hunt. Imagine a swamp. The air is thick, humid, and smells of rot and sulfur. The water is stagnant, coated in green algae, hiding everything beneath the surface. This is Lerna, a place the ancients avoided, whispering that it was another entrance to the land of the dead.
And living here, coiled in the mud, is the Hydra. The Hydra was a serpent, but to call it a snake is to insult its horror. It was a mass of writhing necks. Some poets say it had 7 heads, others 9, some even say 50. But the number didn't matter as much as the curse. The Hydra was the ultimate biological weapon. Its blood was so venomous that even the scent of its tracks could kill a man. Its breath was toxic, but its true terror lay in its immortality. You see, violence against the Hydra was futile. If a hero swung his sword and severed one of those terrible heads, the creature did not die. The flesh would bubble, knit together, and suddenly 2 heads would burst forth from the bloody stump. Think of the metaphor here. The Greeks were telling us about the struggles of life. The Hydra represents the problems that get worse the more you try to fight them. It is the debt that grows when you borrow, the lie that requires 2 more lies to cover it. When Heracles came to Lerna for his second labor, he found that brute strength was useless. He would chop, and the monster would grow. It was a chaotic bloom of fangs. He only defeated it by changing his tactic. He needed help. His nephew, Iolaus, brought fire. As Heracles cut, Iolaus burned the neck shut, cauterizing the wound so nothing could grow back. Iron and fire, strategy and strength. Finally, only one head remained, the immortal one. Heracles severed it and buried it deep beneath a massive rock. It is said that if you walk by Lerna today and listen very closely to the ground, you might still hear the hiss of the immortal head, angry and alive, trapped beneath the stone. From the wet, suffocating swamp, we travel now to the arid, scorching hills of Lycia. The ground here is hot to the touch. Smoke rises from cracks in the earth. This is the hunting ground of the Chimera. If the Hydra was a biological nightmare, the Chimera was a mockery of nature. She was a fusion of creatures that had no business existing together. Picture a lioness, powerful, tawny, rippling with muscle, but rising from the center of her spine is the head and neck of a goat, staring with strange rectangular pupils, and for a tail, a living, venomous snake. 3 animals, 3 minds, 1 monster. And unlike the lion or the goat, the Chimera breathed fire. She was a walking furnace. The Greeks feared her because she made no sense. She was chaos, given form. She terrorized the countryside until the hero Bellerophon arrived. But Bellerophon knew he could not stand on the ground with such a beast. The lion would tear him, the goat would burn him, the snake would bite him. So he took to the sky. Riding the winged horse Pegasus, he flew above the monster's flames. He didn't use a sword. He used a spear tipped with a block of lead. As the Chimera opened her mouth to roar a column of fire, Bellerophon drove the spear into her throat. The heat of her own breath melted the lead, suffocating her from the inside. It is a brutal end, but a clever one. The monster that breathed fire was destroyed by its own heat. The Chimera teaches us that sometimes our own rage is what consumes us. And now we drift west, far west, to the very edge of the map where the sun sets and the world turns gray. We are going to an island of silence. Here we find a figure that is perhaps the most tragic of all monsters. You know her name, Medusa. But before we look at the monster, we must look at the woman. In the older stories, Medusa was not born a beast. She was a priestess of Athena. She was famous not for horror, but for beauty. Her hair, they say, was her glory, locks of gold that rivaled the sun. But beauty, in Greek mythology, is dangerous. The sea god Poseidon desired her, and in a cruel twist of fate, Medusa was wronged in the temple of Athena. The gods, however, rarely punish each other. Athena did not strike Poseidon. She struck Medusa. Imagine the horror of the transformation. The golden hair thickening, hissing, turning into green vipers coiling around her ears, her skin hardening, and her eyes. Her eyes were given a terrible power. Anyone who looked at Medusa, anyone who sought to connect with her, to plead with her, to love her, would instantly turn to stone. She fled to this lonely island with her immortal sisters, the Gorgons, but she was mortal, and she was alone. She became a monster because the world treated her like one. She was hunted. Men came with swords to claim her head as a trophy, and one by one, she turned them into statues. Her garden was not filled with flowers, but with the frozen, gray faces of screaming men. Then came Perseus. We call him a hero, but in this story, he is an executioner. He could not look at her, for he would die. So he looked at her reflection in his polished shield. He reduced her to an image, a mirror. When he severed her head, the story says that Pegasus, the winged horse, sprang from her blood. Even in death, she birthed something beautiful.
Medusa is a heavy story. She represents the terror of isolation, the woman who cannot be looked upon, the anger that hardens the heart to stone. She is not just a monster, she is a warning about what cruelty can create. The swamp of the Hydra is quiet now. The fires of the Chimera have burned down to ash, and Medusa sleeps her eternal sleep. These monsters were the shadows that defined the light of the Greek world. Without the darkness of the cave, the light of Olympus would not shine so bright. But there are more terrors. The sea is vast, and sailors whisper of songs that lure men to their death. And high on the cliffs, a creature asks a riddle that decides your fate. We are halfway through our journey. The night is still young, and the stories are far from over. Rest your eyes. Let the images of fire and stone fade. The fire of the Chimera has faded into the ash of history. The snakes of Medusa have turned to stone. But the ancient world is not yet safe. In Greek mythology, the greatest danger wasn't always a beast you could fight with a sword. Sometimes the danger was a journey. The roads between cities and the currents between islands were haunted. To travel in ancient Greece was to test your fate. You had to pass through narrow places where monsters waited not just to eat your body, but to test your mind and your spirit. Tonight we face the monsters of the threshold, the ones who ask questions, and the ones who force you to make impossible choices. We travel now to the dry, dusty road outside the great city of Thebes. There is a high rock overlooking the path, and perched upon it is a creature of terrifying stillness, the Sphinx. She is not like the other children of Echidna. She does not roar. She does not rampage. She waits. She has the body of a lion, tawny and powerful. She has the great wings of an eagle folded against her sides. And she has the face of a woman, calm, unblinking, and utterly without mercy. The Sphinx held the city of Thebes hostage, not with an army, but with a riddle. She would stop every traveler who tried to enter or leave. She would look deep into their eyes and ask a single question. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? If you answered incorrectly, there was no second chance. She would strangle you. That is what her name means, Sphinx, the Strangler. For years, the road was littered with the bones of those who guessed wrong. The monster wasn't testing their strength. She was testing their understanding of life. Then came Oedipus, a man marked by a tragic destiny, but armed with a sharp mind. He looked at the beast and saw the answer. Man,
he said, who crawls on 4 legs as a baby, walks upright in adulthood, and uses a cane in old age. The riddle was solved. The mystery was broken. In some stories, the Sphinx, unable to bear the defeat of her intellect, cast herself from the cliff and perished. The Sphinx represents the fear of the unknown. She is the gatekeeper of knowledge. She reminds us that before we can enter the city of wisdom, we must first understand the nature of ourselves, our fragility, and our aging. We leave the dusty road of Thebes and take to the sea, the wine-dark sea of Homer. We are sailing toward a narrow strait, a strip of water between Italy and Sicily. The sailors stop singing. The captain grips the wheel until his knuckles turn white, because ahead, on either side of the narrow channel, death is waiting. To the sailors of the ancient world, this was the ultimate nightmare, a choice with no right answer. On one side, towering high into the mist-covered cliffs, lived Scylla. She was once a nymph, beautiful and desired, but jealousy transformed her into a horror. She became a monster of the rock. From her waist sprouted 6 long serpentine necks, each ending with a head with 3 rows of shark-like teeth. She also had 12 legs, like a monstrous crab, gripping the cliffside. She did not leave her cave. She simply waited for a ship to pass too close, and when it did, she would strike, snatching 6 sailors at once, 1 for each mouth. But if you steered away from Scylla, you drifted toward the other side, toward Charybdis. Charybdis was not a creature of flesh and bone. She was a living maw of the ocean. 3 times a day, she would open her mouth and swallow the sea, creating a massive whirlpool that dragged everything, ships, whales, men, down into the abyss. Then she would spit it all back out in a geyser of destruction. This is the terror of the strait. If you sail close to Scylla, you lose 6 men. If you sail close to Charybdis, you lose the entire ship. Odysseus, the wandering king, had to make this choice. He chose Scylla. He chose to sacrifice 6 of his friends to save the rest. He sailed past the cliff, hearing their screams as they were lifted into the air, unable to help them. Scylla and Charybdis are more than just monsters. They are the embodiment of the hard choices in life, the rock and the hard place. They remind us that sometimes there is no safe path, only the path of survival. We survived the sea. We wash ashore on the island of Crete, a place of ancient power and dark secrets. We walk toward the great palace of Knossos, but we are not going to the throne room. We are going underneath it. Beneath the palace lies the labyrinth, a maze so complex, so twisting that once you enter, you can never find the exit. It is a prison of confusion. And at the center of this darkness, hearing your heartbeat, waits the Minotaur. The Minotaur is a creature of tragedy and rage. He has the powerful body of a man, but the head and tail of a bull. He is the stepchild of King Minos, born from a curse sent by Poseidon to punish the king's greed.
The Minotaur was too dangerous to let roam free, but too divine to kill. So, the great inventor, Daedalus, built the labyrinth to hold him. Imagine the horror of the victims sent into that maze. 7 young men and 7 young women from Athens, sent as tribute every 9 years. They were pushed into the cold stone corridors, without weapons, without light.
They would wander for days, hungry, thirsty, hearing the heavy hooves of the beast echoing off the walls. The Minotaur was the hunter in the dark. He knew every turn. He was the shame of the kingdom, kept alive by blood. It was the hero, Theseus, who finally ended the terror. But he didn't do it with strength alone. He survived because of a thread. The princess Ariadne gave him a ball of golden string to unwind as he entered, so he could find his way back out. Theseus found the beast at the heart of the maze. They fought in the darkness, man against monster, until the bull man fell. The Minotaur is a powerful symbol. The labyrinth represents the human mind, our complex, twisting subconscious. And the Minotaur? He is the beast inside us, the anger, the shame, the primal urges we try to hide away in the dark. We build walls around our monsters, but they are always there, waiting at the center. The Sphinx has fallen from her cliff. The ship has passed through the deadly straits. The labyrinth is silent. We have faced the monsters of the earth, the sea, and the mind. But there is one final terror left. It is not a beast with claws or fangs. It is something far more inescapable. It is fate, and the curse of the gods. In our final chapter, we will look at what happens when the monsters are gone, but the gods themselves turn against you. We will speak of the curses that run in the blood, and the final journey into the afterlife. The Minotaur lies dead in the maze. The sea monsters have been passed. But as we reach the end of our journey, we realize that in ancient Greece, the sharpest teeth were not always in the mouth of a beast. Sometimes the monster was inside your own house. Sometimes it was inside your own blood. We enter now the realm of the invisible terrors, the curses, and the fates. These were the forces that not even the gods could stop. You could kill a Hydra with fire, but you could not kill a prophecy with a sword. In the ancient world, guilt was not just a feeling, it was a substance. They called it miasma, a spiritual pollution that clung to you like dirt. If a man committed a terrible crime, betrayed a guest, killed a family member, or insulted a god, that stain didn't just sit on him. It soaked into his children and his children's children. This is the horror of the generational curse. Consider the house of Atreus, a royal family that seemed blessed with gold and power, yet it was rotting from the inside. It started with Tantalus, a king who tried to trick the gods by serving them a gruesome meal. For this, he was punished in the underworld, forever hungry and thirsty. But his crime didn't end with him. It cascaded down the generations like a dark waterfall. His descendants were doomed to betray one another. Brother fought brother. Fathers sacrificed daughters. Wives murdered husbands. It wasn't just bad luck. It was the curse. To the Greeks, this was the ultimate horror. The idea that you might be born doomed, paying the price for a sin you did not commit. This monster had no face to punch, no head to sever. It was a shadow that lived in the hallways of the palace, ensuring that tragedy would always find a way home. Who decided these tragedies? Was it Zeus on his throne? Was it Apollo with his arrows? No. Even the gods were afraid of the 3 old women who sat in the white silence, spinning wool. They were the Moirai, the Fates. Clothos, the spinner, who held the distaff and spun the thread of your life. Laxus, the allotter, who measured the thread with her rod, deciding how long your story would be. And Atropos, the inflexible one, the most feared of all. She held the shears.
When she decided your time was up, she cut the thread. It did not matter if you were a beggar or a king, a hero or a monster. When Atropos cut, you fell. The Greeks believed that destiny was woven before you took your first breath. Achilles was destined to die young and glorious. Oedipus was destined to meet his tragedy. They could run to the ends of the earth, but they were only running along the thread that had already been spun. This brings a strange kind of peace. If the fates have already woven the tapestry, then the burden of control is lifted. We are all just threads in a much larger design. And so, when the thread is cut, where do we go? We return to where we began. We cross the river Styx. We pass the 3 heads of Cerberus, but now we go deeper. The Greek afterlife was not a place of fire and brimstone for most. It was a place of fading. Most souls drifted to the asphodel meadows. Imagine a field of endless gray flowers, pale and ghostly, stretching out under a sunless sky. The air is still. There is no pain here, but there is no joy either. The souls here drift like dried leaves. They do not speak much. They do not remember much. They slowly forget their names, their loves, their angers. They become shadows. For the very wicked, there was Tartarus, the deep pit of punishment. For the very heroic, there was Elysium, the island of the blessed, where the sun always shone. But for most, it was simply rest, a long, quiet, gray rest. The monsters are gone. The curses are broken. The fates have put down their scissors. There is only silence.
We have traveled a long road tonight. We have walked with giants, swum with serpents, and navigated the maze of the mind. The ancient Greeks filled their world with monsters because the world was frightening. They needed faces for the storms, names for the diseases, and stories for the shadows. But by naming them, they tamed them. By turning their fears into myths, they made them understandable. And now, the journey is done. The book of myths is closing. The monsters are returning to the ink and the stone. They cannot hurt you. They are only stories, drifting in the smoke of history. You are safe here. The night outside is just the night. The shadows are just shadows. Let the thread of your own thoughts loosen. Let the loom stop spinning. Sleep now. The gods are resting, and so should you. Good night.